This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, December 19th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A government funding plan has collapsed days before a Christmas-time shutdown.
We can't have last-minute delays.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In a reversal, the House Ethics Committee will release the findings of their investigation of former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
According to President-elect Trump, Liz Cheney could be in some trouble. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Supreme Court will hear arguments over the ban on TikTok. Hi, up in Juani, Washington.
Stocks will try to rebound today from a serious sell-off yesterday. The Dow on its longest losing streak in 50 years. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Bomb threat made against the Los Angeles City Hall. Police believe they have the suspect. We'll have the latest.
The world's largest hornet has been declared eradicated in the U.S. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Congress now has less than 48 hours to fix a budget bill and avert a government shutdown after President-elect Trump and Elon Musk publicly stated they don't like the bill as it is now. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports House Speaker Mike Johnson, speaking to Fox News, said he didn't like the bill either, but it was important to pass it.
Elon and Vivek and I are on a text chain together, and I was explaining to them the background of this. And Vivek and I talked last night about almost midnight, and he said, look, I get it. He said, we understand you're in an impossible position. Everybody knows that. Remember, guys, we still have just a razor-thin margin of Republicans, so any bill has to have Democrat votes. They understand the situation. They said, it's not directed to you, Mr. Speaker, but we don't like the spending. I said, guess what, fellas? I don't either. We got to get this done because here's the key. By doing this, we are clearing the decks, and we are setting up for Trump to come in roaring back with the America First agenda. That's what we're going to run with gusto beginning January 3rd when we start the new Congress.
A government funding plan has collapsed days before a Christmas-time shutdown after President-elect Donald Trump abruptly rejected a bipartisan deal. Trump is telling House Speaker Mike Johnson and the GOP to essentially renegotiate a new deal before Friday's deadline to keep the government open.
I wish it weren't necessary. I wish we hadn't had record hurricanes in the fall, and I wish our farmers were not in a bind so much that creditors are not able to lend to them anymore. We have to be able to help those who are in these dire straits.
In a statement, Trump and VP-elect J.D. Vance say Republicans must get smart and tough. Trump is making an almost unrealistic proposal to pair the continuation of government funding with a much more controversial provision to boost America's debt limit, something the GOP routinely rejects. Hours earlier, Senate Democratic Chief Chuck Schumer had hailed the funding deal.
Bipartisan cooperation must lead the way. We can't have last-minute delays or grandstanding, or else the American people won't get the funding they deserve, or else we could risk a shutdown.
But many Republicans had been waiting on Trump to signal how they should vote on a massive deal rank-and-file GOP lawmakers blasted for its increased spending. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In a surprising reversal, the House Ethics Committee, tasked with investigating multiple areas of potential wrongdoing by former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, will now release their report to the public. John Stolnis is following the story from Washington.
Late last month, the committee voted along party lines publicly not to release the report. But reportedly, at least some Republicans on the committee have now had a change of heart, secretly voting earlier this month to release it after the 118th Congress adjourns for the final time for the holidays. When the committee made their initial decision, Gaetz had resigned from Congress, but was named by President-elect Donald Trump to be his pick for Attorney General. He has since withdrawn his name from consideration after it became clear Gaetz didn't have enough support among Senate Republicans. GOP Congressman Tim Burchett was asked if he agrees with the committee's decision on CNN.
No, I don't. I think Matt's out of Congress, and I'm going to push for the Ethics Committee to release all the findings they have on every congressman, because if it's good for one, it's good for all of them.
And fellow Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene echoes Burchett's sentiment.
I support all the lists being released. I want to see Epstein's list. I want to see the list of the sexual misconduct slush fund. You know, members of Congress and senators that taxpayer money was used to pay out their victims. I want to see all the list.
Including the Gaetz report.
If they're going to release one, release them all.
The Ethics Committee investigated alleged sexual misconduct by Gaetz, as well as illicit drug use, sharing inappropriate material with other members on the House floor, and using campaign funds for personal use and/or accepting bribes or improper gifts. In a statement on X, Gaetz responding by reminding people the Biden administration's Justice Department investigated him thoroughly and no charges were brought, although he does admit to partying too hard in his 30s and that he, quote, often sent funds to women I dated, even some I never dated but who asked. He claims he never had sexual contact with anyone under 18, and he also said his past behavior was embarrassing but not criminal. Despite winning re-election in November, Gaetz said last month he will not return to Congress in January and is instead expected to take a TV job with One American News instead. John Stolnis, Washington.
Former Congresswoman Liz Cheney in the hot seat when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning and AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy with the national forecast.
There is a storm and associated cold front exiting the East Coast first thing this morning with a little rain on Cape Cod and down East Maine, as well as a few showers and thunderstorms along the Carolina coasts. This is ushering in some chillier air as a precursor to a clipper storm moving through the northern plains into the Great Lakes. This is known as an Alberta clipper, since that's the general origin of the storm's development. As the storm shifts through North Dakota into Minnesota and Wisconsin, it will spread a narrow swath of snow through the region, though it can be intense with many areas from northern and eastern North Dakota into north-central Minnesota and Wisconsin having 6 inches or more of snowfall. It will also be very strong with the winds, leading to some blowing and drifting. This system will lose some intensity as it moves farther east Thursday night into Friday, but it could still produce travel disruptions through the region from the Ohio Valley into the Appalachians. Meanwhile, another feature will be entering the northwest. As the storm and associated front lift northward, it will lead to some rain, especially this afternoon into tonight along the coasts of Washington and Oregon. But most interior areas will remain dry as high pressure holds on strong. This high pressure will lead to some fog over interior valley regions, but most areas will see sunshine with temperatures climbing nicely into the 40s and 50s in northern locations and warming to the 70s and 80s in Southern California into the southwest. This is generally about 5 to 15 degrees above the historical average. That's the weather across America. Milwaukee, Wisconsin will have mostly cloudy skies today with snow in the afternoon and a high of 34. Roswell, New Mexico will have plenty of sunshine today with a mild afternoon and a high of 66. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President-elect Donald Trump says former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney could be in serious trouble surrounding the House GOP Committee investigation into Trump's alleged role in the January 6 riot. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
In a post, President-elect Trump said Liz Cheney could be in a lot of trouble based on the evidence obtained by the subcommittee. He's referring to a 128-page report by the House Administration Oversight Subcommittee that accuses Cheney of witness tampering. Trump said the report states numerous federal laws were likely broken by Cheney, and the violations, he said, should be investigated by the FBI. There's no love lost between Trump and Cheney, who endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris in her race against Trump for the presidency. Cheney had harsh words about Trump and his running mate with the Texas Tribune recently.
This is my diplomatic way of saying it. They're misogynistic pigs.
And Trump recently spoke with NBC's Kristen Welker about the January 6th committee.
For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody, anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that.
The report also accuses members of the January 6th committee of withholding evidence and failing to preserve records from its investigation. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Supreme Court announces they will hear the case against a potential nationwide ban on the app TikTok. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Justices will look into the constitutionality of the federal law banning TikTok in the United States if its Chinese parent company doesn't sell it. The law enacted in April set a January 19th deadline for TikTok to be sold or else face a ban in the United States. The popular social media platform has more than 170 million users in the country. Lawyers for the company and China-based ByteDance asked the justices to step in. The High Court will also hear arguments from content creators who rely on the platform for income and some TikTok users. But it isn't clear how quickly the High Court will come to a decision. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Higher home prices and Canadian dollar falls. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Thanks for listening. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Well, how'd stocks do yesterday? Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Stocks are coming off a big sell-off yesterday. The Dow tanking 1,100 points. The Fed cut interest rates by a 0.25 percentage point as expected, but stocks tanked because the Fed's forecasting fewer rate cuts next year, and investors didn't want to hear that.
All the round numbers are gone. 6,000 S&P, 45,000 Dow, 20,000 composite. This could be your flush. This could be where you finally have people lose a little bit of their hope. So we're going to reset.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. The Dow's losing streak, now its longest since 1974 at 10 trading days. The Supreme Court will hear arguments over the TikTok divestment law. The court didn't pause the law, which calls for the social media platform to be sold by its Chinese parent company to an American owner or to be banned in mid-January. 5% mortgage rates are at least 2 years away. The CEO of Compass says brace yourself for still higher home prices because there's just not enough homes up for sale.
Yes, the inventory right now has been increasing across the country. Every state has more inventory than it did this time last year. So that's a positive, but it's 20% less than pre-pandemic levels. If we want to see prices stabilize or even come down, we'll need much more inventory.
Compass CEO Robert Refkin on CNBC. Yesterday, the average rate on a 30-year fixed home loan was 6.9%, according to Mortgage News Daily. Back in September, it was 6.1%. Home builders overall started building fewer homes in November, but there's a split. They started construction on fewer apartment buildings, but started construction on a few more single-family homes.
Multifamily and starts down 24% month to month. Single-family starts were actually up 6.4% month to month, still down over 10% year over year. So builders, they're waiting to see what happens after the new administration takes power and what happens with regulation, what happens with mortgage rates.
CNBC's Diana Olick. Traveling north for the holidays, your American dollar will buy you even more in Canada right now.
The Canadian dollar hovering at its lowest level against the U.S. dollar since March of 2020. This is the government of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faces a political crisis following the sudden resignation of his finance minister.
CNBC's Frank Holland. $1 US worth about $1.44 Canadian. Conversely, it's pretty expensive now for Canadians traveling to the U.S. for the holidays. On today's watch list, we get the latest read on U.S. economic growth with GDP, gross domestic product. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. We get existing home sales numbers for November. Earnings are coming from CarMax, Accenture, Olive Garden Parent, Darden Restaurants, FedEx, and Nike.
Thank you, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, beware of this murderous insect after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Police in Los Angeles have been investigating for 2 months to determine who phoned in a bomb threat to City Hall, and they believe they have found their suspect. Fox News is reporting the city's deputy mayor of public safety, now on administrative leave. after Brian Williams' home in Pasadena was raided by the FBI. Los Angeles police released a statement saying Williams was likely the source of the threat. When the bomb call was phoned in September, it was deemed there was no immediate threat to the building, and both the police and FBI began their investigation. Williams, who joined the administration of Mayor Karen Bass in 2023, was the city's deputy mayor for public safety. Oh, what a difference a year makes when it comes to the insect known as the murder hornet. Lisa Dwyer reports.
The world's largest hornet has been declared eradicated in the U.S. The invasive northern giant hornet is also known as the murder hornet for its dangerous sting and its ability to slaughter a honeybee hive in a matter of hours. Washington State and the U.S. Departments of Agriculture made the announcement 5 years after the hornet was first spotted near the Canadian border. Officials say there have been no new detections of the hornet in Washington State since 2021 and called that a major success. Experts have said the hornet is also considered eradicated in Canada. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Thursday, December 19th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Leaders of the new Department of Government Efficiency saying no to a bill proposed by House Speaker Mike Johnson. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Federal Reserve has again cut its key interest rate by a quarter point. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
New development in the case of the Wisconsin school shooting, and Israel launches a raid against Yemen.
A person in Louisiana has the first severe illness caused by bird flu in the United States. I'm Haya Panjwani.
A concerned relative called police when they hadn't heard from family members in a few days. Now police are investigating a murder scene. I'm Katie Clark with details.
Alec Baldwin says the fallout from the Rush shooting is far from over. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. With a look at the national forecast on America in the Morning, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm and associated front will lift northward in the northwest today. It's going to lead to some rain, especially this afternoon into tonight along the coast of Washington and Oregon. But high pressure will hold strong over the interior areas, leading to some dry conditions. Though some interior valley locations will have fog to start, this high pressure will lead to some sunshine for most locations. Afternoon temperatures will be climbing nicely into the 40s and 50s in most northern states and warming into the 70s and 80s in Southern California into the southwest. This is about 5 to 15 degrees above the historical average for mid-December. Dry weather will also extend through the central and southern plains into the southeast. This will provide plenty of sunshine with highs in the 50s and 60s for most, those 70s in South Texas and parts of Florida, even a few 80-degree readings in there. This is generally close to average for mid-December. Heading into the east, there is a storm and associated front exiting the East Coast first thing this morning with a little rain on Cape Cod and down East Maine, as well as a few showers and thunderstorms along the Carolina coast. This is ushering in some chillier air into the region ahead of a Clipper storm shifting into the northern plains and Great Lakes. As this storm moves through North Dakota into Minnesota and Wisconsin, it will spread a narrow swath of snow through the region, though it can be intense with many areas from northern and eastern North Dakota into north central Minnesota and northern Wisconsin having 6 inches or more of snowfall. It will also be very strong with winds, which will lead to some widespread blowing and drifting. And this system will lose some intensity as it moves farther east Thursday night into Friday, but could still produce travel disruptions through the region from the Ohio Valley into the Appalachians. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Back to the drawing board for the GOP leaders in the U.S. House after their spending plan catches criticism from both Elon Musk and President-elect Trump, who warned any Republican voting for the spending bill could face a tough re-election. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the current funding expires tomorrow night.
Billionaire tech mogul Elon Musk posted a photo of the proposed legislation in a stack of papers on X with the caption, "Ever seen a bigger piece of pork?" Musk will co-chair the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, with Vivek Ramaswamy, and called for lawmakers who support that proposal to lose their seats. Republicans in Congress are now speaking out against the proposal and going after Speaker Mike Johnson. Republican Congressman Greg Steube spoke to Fox Business.
We have a speaker who a year ago told us CRs are not the way to govern. He committed to the conference that we weren't going to govern through CRs anymore, and 4 CRs later, here we are eating another CR as a conference.
And Congressman Chip Roy critical of the proposal with Fox Business.
You're not going to be able to curb inflation if you don't do at least 2 things. Hammer regulations, deregulate this place, and stop spending money we don't have.
The proposed bill included pay raises for lawmakers, $100 billion in disaster relief, financial help for farmers, and money to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore.
Over 1,500 pages, all right? The bills that have never seen the light of day. None of us knew what was in them. People are expected to vote on them very quickly. More regulation, just wasteful spending, no pay-fors, right? It makes no sense.
Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott and the Freedom Caucus with a plan of their own moving forward, the Trump agenda.
We've got to extend the Trump tax cuts. And there's probably a lot of things we can do to improve the tax policy of this country to do what we should be doing. Our tax policy should be doing. How do we make sure we fund our government, but how do we do it in a manner that we create jobs, don't destroy jobs?
President-elect Trump and VP-elect J.D. Vance put out a joint statement saying Republicans must get smart and tough. Speaker Johnson defended his proposal this week, saying that for now, until the new Congress takes hold, Democrats are still in charge of the Senate and the White House. He said, quote, "So what we've done is the conservative play call here." I'm Clayton Neville.
The Federal Reserve did impose an interest rate cut, but it's signaling fewer rate cuts next year. And the moment they did, it sent stocks on Wall Street into free fall. With a follow-up, correspondent Sagar Meghani.
The Federal Reserve has again cut its key interest rate by 1/4 point, but signals fewer reductions next year than previously predicted.
With today's action, we have lowered our policy rate by a full percentage point from its peak, and our policy stance is now significantly less restrictive. We can therefore be more cautious as we consider further adjustments to our policy rate.
In September, the central bank predicted 4 more cuts next year. Now, just 2.
The slower pace of cuts for next year really reflects both the higher inflation readings we've had this year and the expectation inflation will be higher.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell says central bankers believe they're closer to the neutral rate, one that neither spurs nor slows the economy, which would let them be more cautious about future cuts.
You saw in the SEP that risks and uncertainty around inflation we see as higher. Nonetheless, we see ourselves as still on track to continue to cut. I think the actual cuts that we make next year will not be because of anything we wrote down today. We're going to react to data. That's just a general sense of what the committee thinks is likely to be appropriate.
At the same time, core inflation remains persistently above the Fed's 2% target. So why cut at all next year? Powell says the Fed projects the number coming down to 2.5%.
That'd be significant progress.
But the slower pace of cuts would mean consumers may not enjoy much lower rates next year for things like mortgages and auto loans. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
New and disturbing elements into this week's school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. It involves the police and FBI performing a deep dive into the social media of the 15-year-old teenage shooter. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is reporting that a 20-year-old California man has been detained on suspicion of plotting to coordinate a mass shooting at a government building in conjunction with the Madison school shooter. Authorities in Carlsbad, California say the man, identified by KFMB-TV San Diego as Alexander Pfaffendorf, allegedly told FBI agents that he told Natalie Samantha Rupnow that he would arm himself with explosives and a gun and that he would target a government building. The Journal-Sentinel is reporting that there were no messages found online from Pfaffendorf to Rupnow. And community members in Madison are grieving in the aftermath of the shooting that killed a teacher, a student, and wounded 6 others. More on the story from correspondent Jennifer King.
At a vigil outside Wisconsin's state capitol Tuesday night, community members held candles as they gathered to honor those slain and injured in a shooting at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison the day before.
There was blood on the floor and down the stairs.
Naomi Allen was in a classroom nearby when a 15-year-old girl targeted students and teachers in a study hall before fatally shooting herself.
It's still kind of hard to think and feel feelings.
School shootings by teenage females have been extremely rare in U.S. history. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said the motive appears to be a combination of factors.
We're looking into her online activity.
Barnes says police are investigating writings that may have been penned by the shooter and could shed light on her actions.
Like, these kids in here are probably the sweetest people you ever meet.
Mackenzie Truitt was among those who stopped by outside the school on Tuesday.
It's sad, like, how often these are happening and how mental health is declining, and it doesn't seem like there's anything anybody can do.
I'm Jennifer King.
When we return on America in the Morning, among the stories we're covering, forget that airbag recall after these messages. Welcome back. I'm John Trout. You're with America in the Morning. Reports out of the Middle East say Israel sent warplanes to Yemen targeting the Yemeni capital city for the first time, a retaliatory strike after Houthis in Yemen fired a missile last night toward central Israel, but it was intercepted by the Israeli missile defense system. It was the second such missile fired by the Iran-backed terrorists this week. The Jerusalem Post is reporting from government officials that targets included the capital city as well as a port, an oil facility, and 2 electric power plants. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared an emergency in response to growing concerns over bird flu cases across the nation. As correspondent Hayapan Jwani reports, this most recent round of illness associated with bird flu was reported in Louisiana.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said the patient had been in contact with sick and dead birds in backyard flocks. Previous illnesses in the country had been mild, and the vast majority had been among farm workers exposed to sick poultry or dairy cows. This year, more than 60 bird flu infections have been reported, with more than half in California. Health officials say bird flu is still mainly an animal health issue, and the risk to the general public remains low. I'm Hayapan Jwani.
Police in Utah discover a house of horrors where a man, his wife, and 2 daughters were dead and their teenage son shot in the head. Following that story, correspondent Katie Clark.
Members of a family in West Valley City, Utah hadn't been heard from in a few days, which is why a close relative had concerns. They called police to do a welfare check on the family, but police could not enter the house without a search warrant. The next day, the concerned relative decided to go over to the family's home. That's when they discovered the 17-year-old son in the garage. West Valley City spokesperson Roxanne Vainuku speaking on Fox 13 Salt Lake City.
The 17-year-old suffered a severe brain injury. He was shot through the head, and he is not in a condition where we're able to speak to him.
Police entered the home to find more shooting victims.
Our initial determination is that the father likely shot all of the members of the family and then himself. However, we do need to wait for confirmation from ballistics evidence and also from forensics evidence to be able to determine that definitively.
Vainuku describes what is believed to be the murder weapon.
A small handgun was found underneath the body of the father. We believe this was the weapon used in the shootings.
Neighbors say they didn't hear any gunshots. The family does not have a history of domestic violence. No note was found, no motive known. Police continue their investigation. I'm Katie Clark.
A massive airbag recall prompts a government agency to do an about-face. Lisa Dwyer explains.
U.S. safety regulators have backed away from seeking a recall of nearly 50 million airbag inflators thought to be at risk of exploding and hurling shrapnel into drivers and passengers. Regulators now say they will continue to investigate after the auto industry raised questions about whether all of the inflators are defective. The auto industry pointed to technical and engineering differences between ARC inflators in vehicles made by different manufacturers. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has determined that more investigation is warranted. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Here's a plot twist. The Chinese have accused American spy agencies of cyber espionage in the theft of smart energy and sensitive Chinese corporate data. Our Chuck Palm has today's tech news.
China has accused the United States of a cyber attack from U.S. intelligence agencies. In a plot twist from the latest tech news, China's National Internet Emergency Response Center said on Wednesday that they had found and dealt with 2 separate incidents of cyber attacks from the U.S. on Chinese tech firms, apparently in an effort to steal trade secrets, and has been ongoing since May of last year. The National Computer Network Emergency Response Technical Team Coordination Center of China said in a statement published last week that an advanced materials design and research unit in a large-scale high-tech company focused on intelligent energy and digital information were suspected of being attacked by the agency without specifically naming which 3-letter agency. In 2022, China has accused the United States, Germany, and the Netherlands of similar attacks and blamed them of taking control of the computers in China and using them to carry out cyber attacks on Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. For up-to-date tech news, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Let's get a check of Thursday sports now. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
3 weeks left in the NFL season. Week 16 opens tonight with the Broncos at the Chargers, both currently holding AFC wildcards. We get 2 games on Saturday with AFC playoff implications as well. The Texans at the Chiefs and the Steelers at the Ravens. Meantime, college bowl season rolls on. Last night, the Boca Raton Bowl. James Madison whipped Western Kentucky 27-17. That's the Duke's first bowl win since moving up to the FBS level in 2022. At the LA Bowl, number 24 UNLV clipped Cal 24-13. The Running Rebels 11th win this season. That ties the school record. Washington State quarterback John Mateer, the top player in the transfer portal, has committed to Oklahoma. Mateer started all 12 games for the Cougars this season, accounting for 44 touchdowns and nearly 4,000 yards of total offense. He has 2 years of college eligibility remaining. NHL, the Maple Leafs stopped the Stars 5-3. Goals by William Nylander and Nicholas Robertson 16 seconds apart in period 2 put Toronto on top to stay. Red Wings ding the Flyers 6-4. Panthers over the Wild 6-1. Utah edged the Canucks 3-2 in overtime, and the Ducks got by the Jets 3-2. After taking a bit of a break for the NBA Cup final, the association resumes play tonight with 13 games. College basketball, number 6 Alabama topped North Dakota 97-90 despite 40 points from Trayson Eaglestaff for the Fighting Hawks. Wins for number 9 Marquette, number 11 Connecticut, 13th ranked Gonzaga, number 14 Oklahoma, 15th ranked Houston, and number 21 Memphis. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, amazing backyard discovery. No bones about it. After these messages. This is America in the Morning. Actor Alec Baldwin is opening up about the Rust shooting case, saying there's more details to come. Kevin Carr reports.
Although the case against Alec Baldwin in the shooting on the set of Rust was dismissed, he has stated that things are far from over.
There's more to come.
On Tuesday, David Duchovny's Fail Better podcast featured Baldwin as a guest. At the end of the episode, Duchovny called the Rust shooting a, quote, ongoing tragedy and asked what happens next.
There's so much of this case that is not known because we didn't have a full trial.
Baldwin blames the media for how things were presented.
The mainstream press and the tabloid press suppressed every story that could benefit me and amplified every story that could hurt me.
The actor also says there was a political vendetta against him, with people wishing him harm.
When people hate you on that level, they want 3 things. They want you to die. The second thing is they want you to go to prison. These political crowds, both sides, they love to see their enemies put in prison. And the third thing is they want you canceled, which is like being in prison or being dead.
The shooting happened on the set of Rust in 2021 when Baldwin's prop gun discharged a live round. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed and director Joel Souza was injured. In the aftermath, First Assistant Director David Halls cut a plea deal, and armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Charges were filed against Baldwin twice and eventually dismissed with prejudice in July. Baldwin credits his wife for her support in getting him through the ordeal.
I owe my wife everything. She is the most spiritually ascended human being I've ever met.
I'm Kevin Carr.
Lawyers for music mogul Jay-Z are asking a New York judge to remove him from a lawsuit accusing him of rape that also involves Sean Diddy Combs. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
Jay-Z's attorneys say in their court filing the woman who claims she was 13 when Jay-Z and fellow musician Sean Diddy Combs raped her at a party after the MTV Video Music Awards in 2000 has filed a false complaint against him that is causing incalculable harm. The filing cites an NBC report in which the woman acknowledged inconsistencies in her story. The woman's lawyer, Tony Busby, says he will respond in court to what he calls meritless motions. The woman had sued Combs and amended the lawsuit to include Jay-Z. Combs has pleaded not guilty to criminal charges that he coerced and abused women for years. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
It's certainly not what an upstate New York homeowner expected to find while he was gardening. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on a man who found remains in his backyard from an animal that predates the Ice Age.
Scholars are hailing the discovery of a fossilized mastodon jaw discovered by a man who spotted two giant teeth while gardening at his upstate New York home. Officials from the New York State Museum say a well-preserved jaw of an adult mastodon as well as a piece of a toe bone and a rib fragment were found in late September in a backyard near Scotchtown, about 70 miles northwest of New York City. The museum's curator of Ice Age animals says at first the homeowner thought they were baseballs. Mastodons lived in North America until around 10,500 years ago. They are a distant cousin of the elephant, stood around 10 feet tall, and had twisty trunks. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Thursday, December 19th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.